All right, hey, so we're gonna look real quick on how to really build a connection with your hips, whether it's stabilizing them or creating rotation around them, right? So a lot of times when we look at what the hips do, especially when we look at those abductors, or adductors, not abductors, but when we look at your adductors, right? So the things that kind of people consider the groin muscle, what they're really responsible for is, one, bring that foot in, but it's also for extending the hip and controlling some of that motion, right? So when we squat, when we deadlift, when we sprint, one of the things we need to look at is what is the femur doing in that motion and how do we stabilize it so it can control the forces that we're trying to produce in order to move weight or produce power. So one of the things that people a lot of times struggle with is that internal rotation, right? We've seen hip airplanes where we open and control. That's a pretty good one. But if we want to level it up a little bit or just introduce some variety in order to try to train the ability to control, there's a couple different ways that we can do this. So we've done some stuff on a plate before. So when we look at building foot strength, well, we can also do this with a hip. So all we're going to do is we have a plate here. We're just trying to sink down into a nice deep position. So right here, my hips are square. Everything's facing forward. I've just got a regular with like a hip circle just sticking out in front, or if you want to sit there and just a regular red small band, you're being able to get up knee off the ground. You're gonna try to spread that band apart. You're gonna try to control the hip, rotate the hip in as you open and spread the band apart, and then rotate that hip out, right? So we're controlling that internal and external rotation while not letting anything else in the system move. You can see my knees moving a little bit. We're trying to control that rotation, right? Now, the other way that we can do this is we can sit there and create motion and try to stabilize, right? So we can learn how to open and control and be able to rotate through the hip. So now I can sit there locking one hand out, and all you're gonna try to do is open up the opposite way while stabilizing. So I open, stabilizing the hip, and then close it back, all right? Notice it takes a little bit extra balance, still a little bit more challenging, but that's one of those things that we can do, and I'll show you from the other side. We can control that hip and how it rotates into the function of that stabilization, right? Especially when we're looking at squats, deadlifts, sprints, being able to stabilize that hip is gonna be really, really crucial to transmitting power and producing force, and it's gonna help us stay injury-free and safe. So it's also, if you're somebody that struggles with lower back pain, as you sit down a lot during the day, doing these is one of those things that you can do to really kind of create some association with what your hips are doing, creates a little bit more awareness, loosens them up a little bit, because then you're gonna get into some positions that are able to be freed up. So it's one of those things you can do, helps work on the mobility, helps work on your stability, allows you to kind of create a little bit more of a mental association with what's going on down around your hips in order to live a little bit more pain-free life and perform just a little bit better.